everyone, it's Lisa. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm sharing with you this new floral slimline panel die that is from the Stamps of Life. And this is a large background die for a slimline card. And it comes with the actual piece that cuts out your flowers, and this is the piece that you'll use for your background, and then you have this large rectangle piece that you will also use to cut this background out. In order to cut this background out, you will need to place this on your cardstock with both of these pieces layered, so your large rectangle piece will go around your floral background die. And when this die cuts, it actually die cuts the background, but also die cuts all of these little flowers. So you'll see as we make this card today, you'll see that you can actually have different color flowers and piece them all back in and then have a different color background, and it will be really pretty. But you can actually use different color cardstock for this. If you had large pattern paper, because this is a slimline panel die, you will need larger pattern paper for this if you chose to do that. But I'm going to do some watercoloring instead of using different color papers for my background die. So what I've done is I've taken this large die and I die cut a piece of Bristol smooth cardstock, and this is going to be the piece that we are going to use to cut out our flowers, because I want the flowers to have the watercolor look on them, and that's why I cut this out. Now, we'll also be using this die to cut out a background layer, but we'll do that a little bit later. The pens I'm going to be using are the Arteza watercolor pens. I'm going to be using the teal, the neon pink, and the lemon yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside, and what I'm going to start out with is I am going to just put some ink down here on my cardstock. So I'm just going to go across this just to spread some ink down. And I'm going to take my water brush, and I am using the Arteza water brush pen, and it has water already in it, and I am just, you can squeeze the red part and it actually pushes the water out if you need more water. And that puts water at the tip of the brush, and I'm just spreading this ink out to create a nice background. Isn't that pretty? I love that color. I'm gonna come in with some pinks, and I'm gonna do the same thing. So when I put this down, I'm actually putting this down on some dry paper, and I am coming in with my pens, just scribbling it on, making sure that my tip does not have any extra color from that blue, because I want a clean tip. So I'm just putting some water on there before I go in and start mixing this. So just go in with a wet tip now and just go over that ink to spread it out. And then I'm gonna, again, rinse this off, because right now it has pink on the edge. So I need a clean tip. I'm gonna go ahead and wipe up some of this water. And then I'm gonna come in with the yellow. This is the lemon yellow. I'm gonna put some lemon yellow down here on the bottom of this paper. And as you can see, it doesn't need to be perfect. There's plenty of white gaps in here. It doesn't need to be completely covered because my water brush is going to do that for me. It's actually going to spread that ink. And I just love the effect that that gives. I think that is so pretty. Now, before you do any die cutting, you have to make sure that your piece is completely dry. So you can come in with your heat tool and you can dry that. Okay, and then once your piece is completely dry, we are going to use that piece to cut out the flowers. But before I do that, I am going to put some double-sided adhesive on the back of this piece of cardstock, because when those flowers come out of my die cut, I don't want to have to put glue on all of those. So I'm just going to add some tape here to the back. Then I'm going to take my panel And I'm gonna lay it face down, just like that. And I actually don't even need this die because I'm actually just wanting to get those flowers cut out. Now the only time that I would need this die is I'm actually trying to die cut the actual background, which would be this panel that would go on the card. But this piece is not gonna go on the card. It's actually gonna be a different piece of cardstock. I just wanna cut these flowers out of this panel. So I can just use this die by itself. I don't need this die because I'm not trying to cut out a perfect rectangle, if that makes any sense. All right, so I ran that through my die cut machine. And I think what I'm gonna do, because I don't want these to get stuck to my die, I'm just going to put my little poker tool here just to make sure that those come out. Oh, look at that. Isn't that pretty? So you can see all of these little flowers. These are all stickers now. So when I'm ready to use them, I can just peel them up and I can put them on my card panel. So now what we need to do is we need to get a piece of cardstock that we're gonna use for the top layer, because this watercolor piece is only gonna be for the individual flowers. So the part that's around the flowers, that's gonna be a different color cardstock. So the next thing we have to do is we need to get a piece. I'm gonna be using white cardstock for the top layer. That's gonna be, it's gonna show between the flowers. So I cut a piece of white cardstock and put some double-sided adhesive on the back. And the size you'll need will need to be large enough for this large rectangle die so that it can die cut that out. And then you're going to layer both of these pieces together. And I am just going to add some washi tape just to make sure that these pieces kind of stay centered. I wanna make sure that this background die kind of stays centered between this large rectangle piece. So I'm just gonna add some washi tape there, and then I'll run this through my die cutting machine. So when that comes out of your die cut machine, go ahead and remove the die. And now we are left with, and again, we also have all of the little the flowers that die cut out. So if you wanted to save those, you definitely can do that. So I'm just going to just use my little pokey tool, just like I did earlier, just to make sure that these don't stay in this die. All right, so you can see the panel that we have, and the only thing that we're gonna be using on here is the background. So all of the flowers we are not gonna be using. So now we have these two pieces, and I'm going to do one more die cut here of another piece of white cardstock just with this rectangle die. So that will be my background piece. Okay, so now I have these three pieces that I'm working with. So I'm gonna start with this piece, and I am going to use this white background layer that I cut. And what I want from here is just the outside piece. So I went ahead and took all of those flower pieces out. And now I'm just gonna layer this right on top of this rectangle. It will be the perfect size because it was cut out of the same die. Next, I'm gonna take this piece and I'm just going to piece all of these pieces in here, and you'll see how pretty the contrasting colors are going to look. Now, this particular flower actually has these holes that if you pop them out, and because mine had the double-sided adhesive on the back, those holes kind of, the cardstock kind of stayed in there. So, but if I take them out, what you're gonna see when you put these down is that the white cardstock will be able to show through on there, and it will look really, really pretty. So here I'm bringing in a stamp set. This is the Flamingos to Stamp set from the Stamps of Life, and I stamped this with my Forever Black ink from the Stamps of Life onto some Bristol Smooth cardstock. And I'm going to be using the Neon Pink Real Brush pen from Arteza. This is one of the same colors that I used to create the background. And to be consistent in the colors, I wanted to use a similar color and not bring in a different color pink. So I went ahead and stamped it out. I'm just using my Real Brush pen and my water brush to blend that color out. And these water brush pens that I am using, you can actually fill the pen or the brush up with water in the barrel, so you can twist that red part to open it up, put some water in the barrel, and squeeze that red part on the water brush to let the water come out when you need it. So I'm just putting some of the Real Brush pen on some of the parts of the stamp, and then I'm bringing in my water brush and just blending that out. And I'm using a pretty thin tip for my water brush because you can see that the legs in that flamingo are pretty thin. That water brush does come in various sizes, so I wanted to make sure I have a tip of my brush that is pretty thin to get into those small spaces. Now you can use any of your coloring mediums to color up your stamps. If you had the Zig Real Brush pens, you can use those as well, or you can use your Copic markers, your Spectrum Noir, you can use your watercolor pencils, your colored pencils, however you want to color up your images. Now if you happen to have the Real Brush pens, I do have a video which I will link down below in the description box of how to use these Real Brush pens from Arteza, because I did do a complete video on that. So if you're interested in that, take a look at the description box and watch that video. So I went ahead and colored up both of them. There's a large one and the smaller one in that flamingo set. So I'm also going to be using the Happy Retirement dies, and I die cut the shadow layer out of the white cardstock, and then I die cut the actual words out of the licorice, which is the black cardstock. And I did put the double-sided adhesive on the back. So let me go ahead and get these out of my die and pop these on their shadow layers. And now for the card base, you can use the Slimline card base that the Stamps of Life sells if you have that, to die cut a piece of cardstock. But if you do not have the Slimline card base, you can always cut one yourself. And I took a piece of candy cardstock, and if you just cut down a regular sheet of cardstock down to 8.5 by 7 and then score it at 3.5 inches, that will give you your Slimline card base. So you don't have to have that die to cut it out, but if you happen to have it, you can use that, or you can just cut it yourself. So that's going to be my card base, and that's going to be my panel that goes right on top. So I'm going to go ahead and add this to my card base. So we'll add the floral background panel. Okay, and I'm going to use the larger one. I was thinking I was going to put both of them on the front, but I think I'm just going to do the one. So I'm going to put the little one on the inside of the card, and I'm also going to stamp a sentiment, and the sentiment is from the June 2019 Kit Club that I found. I was looking through all of my sentiments to find one that would be perfect for a retirement card. And look, I have all these dots all over this. I found one that says, "Best wishes on all of your adventures." I think that's perfect for retirement. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that on the inside just using some black ink. And then we will add this little flamingo on the inside. So to finish this off, I'm just going to take some epoxy dots in a similar blue color as what I have on there. And I'm going to add some, for example, where this one, it looks like it's missing something, this flower, I'm going to add an epoxy dot right to the center of that. All right, and that completes my card. So leave me a comment and let me know what you think of this card. And be sure to subscribe to my channel for more card making inspiration. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.